Sonia Clayton, and I have had the privilege and the honor to get to know a lot of you.
Me llamo Sonia Clayton y tengo el privilegio de conocer muchos de ustedes.
I have been in the Houston area for about 25 years.
Tengo 25 años aquí en el área de Houston.
And I had the privilege to work along with my husband. We had the privilege to work with the Singles for a long time. That's how we got to know a lot of you.
Yo y mi esposo tenemos el privilegio de trabajar con muchos de ustedes aquí con nosotros.
Okay. Do I have a clicker or are you going to pass my slides?
The mouse.
All right, well, so we have a lot of material to cover today, so I'm going to speak very fast, and so as a translator, and we're going to go really quickly through those slides, all right?
Yo tengo mucho material que cubrir, entonces ella va a hablar muy rápido, ella espera que yo también pueda traducir muy rápido, pero vamos, que oren por mí, por favor.
Good. All right. Well, this presentation is actually a customization of a presentation that I delivered at Harvard University.
Esta es una presentación adaptada de algo que yo presenté en la Universidad de Harvard.
Okay, and actually my companion was Jim Baker, the former Secretary of State of the United States.
Y mi compañero era Jim Baker, que era anteriormente secretario de Estado de los Estados Unidos.
Okay, and it talks about success.
Y habla del éxito.
So today, you're going to become successful.
Hoy ustedes se van a convertir en personas exitosas.
During my presentation, I will be asking questions. The more questions you respond, the more kisses you get.
Le voy a hacer muchas preguntas y mientras que contesta muchas preguntas, le vamos a dar más, van a recibir muchos besos ustedes.
Okay, let's start. I'm going to tell you a little bit about myself, where I came from, and why is the fascination with Sonia Clayton.
Acerca de mí voy a hablar un poco de quién es Sonia Clayton.
Okay, I was born in Colombia
Yo nací en Colombia.
during the narco-guerrilla movement.
Durante cuando había mucho problema de narcotráfico y con la guerrilla.
In that moment, the Colombian narco-guerrillas associated with the socialist movement.
En esta época los narcoguerrilleros estaban afiliados mucho con el movimiento socialista.
And it was one of the most violent chapters of history in Latin America.
Era un capítulo con mucha violencia en la historia del mundo.
And I remember seeing a lot of violence as a child.
Me acuerdo yo también fui testiga de mucha violencia en mi niñez.
And then my mother moved to Venezuela,
Mi mamá se mudó para Venezuela,
running away from socialism and violence.
tratando de escapar del socialismo y de la violencia.
And I grew up in Venezuela.
Y yo crecí en Venezuela.
So some people knows me as Colombian, some people knows me in Venezuela. I'm from both countries.
Algunos me consideran colombiana, otros venezolanas. De hecho, yo soy de dos partes.
From both países. Yes. And now, a proud U.S. citizen.
Y ahora una ciudadana orgullosa de este país.
Okay, I grew up in extreme poverty.
Yo estaba viviendo en un área muy pobre.
And I had the privilege to meet the church when I was 8 years
Yo
old.
conocí a la iglesia cuando tenía 8 años.
Therefore, the church influenced my life from that point on.
Entonces la iglesia hizo un gran impacto en mi vida.
And I learned principles such as faith, families can be together, and I am a child of God.
Aprendí principios como fe, que la familia puede estar junto para siempre y que yo soy hija de Dios.
I was influenced by 4 factors.
Me influyeron 4 factores.
The U.S. military,
La militar de los Estados Unidos,
because they came to Colombia and aid Colombians in the fight against terrorism and socialism.
porque llegaron a Colombia y ayudaron a pelear contra el narcoterrorismo.
U.S. missionaries,
También misioneros de Estados Unidos.
and I learned Judeo-Christian values from them.
Aprender valores de judío-cristianos de ellos.
I observe a lot of people serving and aiding our country.
Observé muchas personas que vinieron a ayudar, a prestar ayuda en mi país.
And I learned faith and values from them as well.
Aprendí fe y valores también de ellos.
Okay, next slide talks about success. This is my concept of success.
Ahora
If
vamos
you're,
a-
if you're 4, if you're not peeing your pants, you're successful. If you are 12 and you have friends, you're successful. If you're 16 and you have a driver's license, you're successful. If you are 20 and you look good and impressive, you're successful. By 35, if you have money, you're successful. And by 60, if you look good and impressive, you are successful. By 70, having a driver's license is being successful. And by 75, having friends is being successful. And by 80, not being in your pants is being successful. That's the circle of life. And one thing that we learned through the circle of life is that there are seasons in our life. Correct? We're going to learn about that today.
En la vida hay temporadas diferentes en la vida. Vamos a hablar un poco sobre esto.
Okay, the next one talks about, sorry, we went in the other direction. Many are plans of men's hearts, but if the Lord's purpose is to prevail. So we may have certain plans, but ultimately it's the Lord who decides.
Quizás nosotros tenemos muchos planes, pero es la voluntad del Señor que prevalece.
So let us start with that concept, but the reality of it is the Lord wants us to succeed.
Vamos a empezar con este concepto que realmente es el Señor que quiere que nosotros seamos exitosos.
Okay, one concept that I always teach to people is, and for the ones that don't know, I am a president and CEO of a multi-million-dollar operation in America.
Un principio que voy a compartir y para que sepan, yo soy el presidente y oficial en cargo de una empresa importante aquí.
And one of the things that people always ask is, how did you come from nothing and became so successful?
Muchos preguntan, ¿cómo es que llegaste desde la nada y te convertiste en alguien muy importante?
And my answer is, it's because I chose to become that person.
Mi respuesta siempre es porque yo decidí de llegar a ser la persona que soy.
So, as a caterpillar, you have the choice to be where you are today, eating the same leaf and making the same holes in the same leaf over and over again. Or you can become a beautiful butterfly and fly away from the circumstances that you're in, but it's your choice.
Ustedes pueden decidir de seguir siendo, ¿cómo se dice? ¿Un gusano? Un gusano, siempre
Oruga.
Siempre comiendo las mismas hojas y están siempre en las mismas ramitas, o se pueden decidir de convertirse en una mariposa.
Right? Beautiful butterfly. So, one of the things that I always recommend people that they do is identify yourself and develop a plan.
Siempre les recomiendo que tienen que identificar quiénes son y después formar un plan para poder seguir adelante.
How many of you work in a corporation?
¿Cuántos de ustedes trabajan en una empresa?
Okay, I have a few professionals here.
Algunos somos profesionales aquí.
Even if you are not a professional, this presentation is going to be very good for you as an individual.
Aún si no trabajan en el área profesional, esta presentación ofrece mucha información que te va a ayudar.
So identify who you are within your organization, but if you're not within an organization, identify who you are as a person.
Hay que identificar quiénes son ustedes dentro de su organización y si no pertenecen a ninguna organización, por lo menos trata de identificar quiénes son ustedes dentro de su área.
So don't worry about your next promotion. Worry about now. Worry about what you're doing and do your best job.
No se preocupen por la siguiente promoción que van a recibir, sino preocupense mejor por dónde están ahora, cómo pueden mejorar lo que están ahora.
The next slide talks about, what if you're an entrepreneur? Raise your hand if you're an entrepreneur. You're selling something.
Levanta manos si ustedes venden algo, si ustedes ofrecen algún servicio.
We have a lot of you here, and my respect goes out to you because that's how I grew up through my success as an entrepreneur as well.
Les respeto a ustedes porque así también empecé yo.
Define your goals, define your vision, define your objectives, define your timelines, and define your results. Have you ever thought about that as an entrepreneur right now? Okay, so if you have, let's just move forward and see what's next. You have defined a lot of things. So here are 3 important questions that I want you to ask yourself. Who am I? Why am I here? And where do they want going to go as a corporate member? Or as an individual, where should I go? Correct? So your answers to these questions should point out to the same goal. So reflect for a moment. What is my goal? What do you want to accomplish?
Piensen en qué es su meta, qué es lo que quieren lograr.
How does your vision of this role compares with the organization or compares with your final goal?
¿Y cómo se compara su visión de su papel ahora con el papel que ustedes quieren tener más adelante?
All right. Let's move forward to the next slide, and we are going to discuss the price of success. Nothing in life is free.
Ahora vamos a hablar sobre qué cuesta el éxito, porque nada en esta vida sale gratis.
Even welfare is not free.
Ni la ayuda.
It's one of the most expensive things. Somebody is paying for it. It may not be you, but someone is paying for it. So, what is the price that you're willing to pay?
¿Qué precio están dispuestos a pagar ustedes?
Do you think it takes sweat and equity?
¿Creen que requiere sudor y inversión?
Absolutely. And what things are your setbacks? What's setting you back?
¿Cuáles son sus las cosas que le tropiezan o sus barreras?
Is it fear, insecurity, doubt, attitude, lack of vision, discomfort, pride, your mother-in-law, your husband, the negativity? What is it? Knowledge it. Discipline. That's one of the things that we want to talk about today. Thank you for your contribution. Next. Here's a little cartoon that talks about how to work, right? And success is only 10% of inspiration. 90% work. Do you know this? So if you have an idea, if you have a vision, that's your inspiration. Yeah.
Si tienen una visión, eso le va a servir como su inspiración.
I want to be the First Lady of America. That's your inspiration. But what does it take to become the First Lady of America? Or I want to be an architect, or I want to be an engineer. That's your vision. But 90% is work. 10% is only inspiration. The problem with people is they have the vision inverted. So they think that 90% is the vision and 10% is the work. That's the problem.
A veces el problema es que las personas piensan que su visión o su meta debe ser 90% de lo que se requiere, pero no. La visión, lo que quieren llegar a hacer es 10%, después 90% que resta es el sudor y lo que van a poner enfrente para poder lograr sus metas.
Okay, next slide. Talks about goals. How do you write your goals? How do you prepare your goals? What kind of goals do you have? People have all kinds of goals, but what kind of goals do you have? So a goal without a plan is just a wish. So that's simple. And you may not be saying, I wish such a thing. You may say, oh, this is my goal. But if you don't have a plan, if you don't write it down, if you don't have metrics and timelines that you are measuring your own success, you're not going to go anywhere.
Si no tienen un plan, si no tienen ciertas medidas que pueden medir, no van a lograr mucho, realmente, si no están midiendo todo lo que hacen.
Es solo un deseo. Yeah. Okay, the next slide talks about commitment and determination. And I always say this to people because I get interviewed on television and radio and everybody wants to know what's the secret of my success. Well, the secret of my success is simple. Many people in life fail not for lack of ability of education or intellect, but because they have never organized their energies around a specific goal with determination. So when what's your name?
Verónica.
Veronica. Okay, Sister Veronica, when she says, I failed to organize myself, basically, she's acknowledging the fact that she's a problem with determination, perhaps, right? So today, you are going to be very honest with yourself through this presentation. I'm not going to ask any raise of hands. I just want you to think, what's your level of determination, and what is your goal, and how serious are you thinking about this goal and applying it?
Hoy hay que ser muy sinceros con sí mismos y pensando si realmente cuál es nuestra meta y cómo estamos, cuáles son nuestras debilidades para poder ya sacar beneficio de esa presentación.
I want you to read the scripture of Acts 20 right next to this thought, and it says, however I consider my life worth nothing to me, My only aim is to finish the race and complete the task. This is Paul talking in the book of Acts. And look how he puts down his life. Look how he puts, everything else looks minuscule compared with his determination to achieve his goal. What is his goal here? What is the goal of?
¿Cuál es la meta de Pablo aquí?
What is it?
Finish the race.
Finish the race, which imply what?
And complete.
Get the gospel going, right? And so this guy is wholly committed here, and I love reading this verse because he tells me that he was not playing around, he wasn't fooling around with his job. He was dead serious about his job to the point that he talks about even saying how insignificant his life is compared to his goal.
Es un momento que Pablo estaba en serio. Él tomó muy en serio su mente, su trabajo, y tampoco habló de que muy poco, no tan importante su vida, su visión era tan grande.
So he's committed, and this is the level of commitment that we need. If you are willing to die for your goal, then we're talking about goals and commitment. If you're not that point, you're not there.
Este es el nivel de compromiso que se requiere para tener éxito. Si ustedes están dispuestos a morir para poder lograr su meta, entonces sí van a avanzar.
That's the level of determination. Did you know that? Very few people understand determination to that level. I want you to understand determination to that level today.
Se requiere este nivel de determinación.
But sometimes people in the environment that you are in to try to achieve this, they fear you.
They fear you. Yeah, they fear you, but who cares? Is their success or is your success?
It is my success, but it can be a stumbling block.
Doesn't matter. You just keep on, you just step over the stumbling block and keep on going. Yeah, that's part of being fearless. And we'll talk about fear later on.
Yeah.
But that is a reality. Thank you, B. All right, the next slide talks about compelling goals. So I want you to, tonight, I want you to think about a goal. What kind of goal are you walk away from this meeting today that is going to be the goal that you're willing to die for?
Pienso hoy que cuál de meta van a ser hoy noche.
If your goal is to lose weight, then you gotta have the level of commitment that you're going to die before you put another pound on. That's the level of commitment you have.
La meta entonces de bajar de peso, su nivel de compromiso tiene que ser que van a morir para poder bajar una libra. Este es el nivel de compromiso que se requiere ahora.
Successful people have this level of commitment. If you talk about Bill Gates, Steve Jobs, these people live and breathe and were willing to die for their cause.
Las personas más exitosas, ellos tenían este nivel de compromiso, ellos estaban dispuestos de morir o cual costo de lograr lo que querían lograr.
Okay, so choose a goal. That have to be from this stand, but choose a goal, a personal goal.
Hay que
Next.
escoger una meta.
Okay, have you ever heard about SMART goals? M-A-R-T. SMART goals, you heard this mumble jumble through school, you heard this mumble jumble through college, through jobs, but the reality is, there's a lot of science into it, right? So be specific, write your goal, write it down, specific. It doesn't have to be anything big, it could be something small. If the goal is really big that you're trying to achieve, like 15 years ago I said I'm going to be a CEO, and here I am today, I'm a CEO and a president of an international firm. I broke that through 15 years, 15 goals. See? So you can do it, but you have to break it down in smaller goals.
Hay que ser definido o muy específico con sus metas. La meta no tiene que ser gigante o grande, pero lo que sea, tiene que ser muy definido y claro lo que se quiere lograr.
Know if the goal is attainable, measure it. So if you have a really big goal, you will never be able to measure because it's too big. But if your goal is to lose weight, then let's just start weighing myself daily on the scale and writing down all my activities. What is it that I'm going to eat, and what is the goal that I'm going to achieve daily? If your goal is to reduce sugar intake and starches, write it down and put it everywhere around your house. Your fridge, your bathroom, your mirror. That's how I learned another language. I speak 4 different languages. And when I started learning the languages, I would write things around my house. I put stickers everywhere so I would remember the word. Do the same thing. It will not let me forget that my goal was to learn French, and I was memorizing the words as I said. I had them in my car, I have audio tapes in my car, I drove on it. So if your goal is to lose weight, surround yourself with things that talk about weight loss. Success stories, we have iPhones. Pull the iPhone and listen to a success story of somebody who lost weight and inspire you daily. You can do that.
La meta tiene que ser medible. Si vas a poner la meta de bajar de peso, entonces tienes que llenar su día y las cosas alrededor tienen que ayudarle a acordarte de su meta, enfocar en su meta y debe ser algo que se puede medir. Si la meta es muy grande realmente y no se puede medir, no significa mucho.
If you are becoming an entrepreneur and you know nothing about entrepreneurialism and trying to be your own self-boss, then learn about becoming a boss and surround yourself with the environment. Learn from the internet, learn from books, learn from friends, make the daily effort, and surround yourself with the same environment as I explained.
Si usted quiere llegar a ser un empresario, entonces hay que meterse en un ambiente donde las personas a su alrededor, los libros que ustedes lean, las cosas que ustedes escuchan, estén viendo, todo le ayuda a aprender y enfocar en su meta de llegar a ser un empresario.
Attainable goals. What is an attainable goal? It's a goal that is achievable, and I already mentioned a lot about that in the conversation. Let's go to the next slide. How about realistic and timely goals? This is a big problem for a lot of people because they put themselves in an unrealistic goal. And then when they fail, that's it. That's as far as they're going to go. They stop trying, they fail to learn from the experience and give up.
A veces las personas ponen una meta tan grande que no es realista y cuando no logran su meta fracasan, se desaniman y se rinden.
Timely, measure and make sure it's on time. You got to be your own boss, and you have to be a boss worse than your real boss at work.
Para lograr su meta tiene que estar encargado de sí mismo, ser su propio jefe y tiene que ser más duro con sí mismo como el jefe es con uno.
I am my worst boss.
Yo soy el peor jefe de mí mismo.
When I think about the previous bosses that I have and how critical they were of me, I consider myself worse than all of them.
Cuando yo me comparo con los jefes anteriores que he tenido y que tan pesados eran conmigo, yo creo que yo soy más pesado con mí mismo que ellos eran conmigo.
That's it.
Yeah, how do you define that? How are you defining you being like the worst boss than your previous bosses?
Because my old boss asked me to work 8 hours a day, I work 20 hours a day. Because when I wrote a paper, I didn't have to edit it 10, 15 times. I would just shovel the paper out and nobody really reviewed or criticized it. I do criticize myself a lot and I read a paper 10, 15 times before I send it out. So I'm very demanding with myself.
Yo requiero mucho de mí mismo y ella se empujaba de trabajar mucho más de lo que su propio jefe esperaba de ella.
Okay, next slide. Focus on the outcome and focus on the process. So what do you expect from yourself? What exactly do you want from yourself? And what does it represent attaining a goal? And focus on that. And then the process, make sure you have a mental process that reviews your actions constantly.
Enfoque en los resultados para que puedan analizarlo y qué significa para lograr sus metas y también trata de analizar bien el proceso y lo que se requiere para lograr sus metas.
Okay, time is money. How many have you heard that expression before?
Tiempo es dinero.
That is so true.
Este lema antes.
Very important. Schedule your most difficult tasks in the most productive part of your day. Communicate with every employee or every peer or even your family if you don't have employees or peers. But do that at the right moment during the day. Measure your time in small increments and long-term, and use a long-term perspective.
Trata de fijar sus deberes más difíciles en el tiempo más productivo de su día y trata de comunicar con cada empleado de lo que significa 5 minutos que se echaron a perder y trata también de medir su tiempo en incrementos pequeños pero con un perspectivo a largo plazo.
Benjamin Franklin said, time lost is never found.
Benjamin Franklin dijo que el tiempo que se perdió nunca se vuelve a encontrar.
So this is very important for me. Time is very important for me, and you will never find me watching TV. You will never find me gossiping with the neighbor. You'll never find me doing the wrong thing, or anything that I consider is not worth my money, which is my time.
Tiempo es sumamente importante para mí. Nunca me van a encontrar viendo la tele, ni cotorreando con las personas, jugando chismes, ni nada así.
Because time is money.
Porque el tiempo significa dinero, tiene valor.
Now, how do you talk to yourself? Let's talk about what do you think about yourself. Sometimes, as individuals, and this has a lot to do with our culture as Latinos, the ones that come from the Latino culture, we come from a negative culture.
Vamos a hablar sobre su diálogo interno. Nosotros los hispanos venimos de una cultura un poco negativa, entonces vamos a hablar de qué manera debemos comunicar con nosotros mismos.
So don't worry about communicating with the neighbor or criticizing the neighbor or chatting or gossiping about the neighbor. Worry about yourself first.
No se preocupe por sus vecinos o cómo criticarlos o contar chismes de ellos. Preocúpese mejor por usted mismo primero.
You're first all the time.
Ustedes deben ser número uno todo el tiempo.
So how do you talk to yourself, you being number one?
¿Cómo se habla con sí mismo, ustedes siendo número uno?
Your inner dialogue is your self-talk. It's the messages that you send to your brain. And they can be effectively harnessed if you are to maximize your full potential.
Ustedes pueden lograr su potencial máximo si ustedes aprenden eficazmente de hablar con sí mismos.
William Shakespeare said, as a man thinks, so he is.
Como el hombre piensa, dirigido si quiere, así es él, dijo William Shakespeare.
And the scripture says that, of the abundance of the heart, of the abundance of the heart, the mouth is speaking, right? So what comes out of your mouth originates in your brain and in your heart.
Hay una escritura que nos enseña que lo que sale de nuestra boca empieza de nuestro corazón. Entonces representa realmente nuestros deseos, lo que queremos.
Okay, the next slide. When I talk about us as a culture being negative,
Cuando yo dije que nosotros vemos que en una cultura un poco negativa,
I mean that we don't think positively about us, and sometimes that has been something that we heard as a child. Perhaps we didn't have the most educated parent or the best motivating parent. We heard things in childhood that led you to believe that you're dumb, that you're fat, that you're stupid. And so how much of that you have retained and how much of that you repeat in your brain is who you are.
a veces nosotros hemos experimentado cosas, hemos escuchado cosas, visto cosas que nos hacen pensar que nosotros no somos inteligentes o nosotros somos sobrepeso o nosotros no podemos. A veces hemos experimentado influencias así que nos ayudan a pensar así de nosotros mismos.
So goal number one from this presentation, write it down, is stop your negative talk.
Apunta eso. La meta número uno de esta presentación es de ya para con la forma de pensar negativo que ustedes o nosotros quizás tenemos.
So if you think that you're not smart enough, stop that right now.
Si ustedes piensan que no son suficientemente inteligentes, para.
If you think you're not beautiful enough, stop that right now.
Si no creen que ustedes son guapos o bonitas, dejen de pensar así.
If you think that you are not able to accomplish big goals, stop that right now.
Si ustedes no creen que son capaces de lograr metas grandes, cambien de forma de pensar ahora mismo.
And replace all these negative thoughts one by one. So catch yourself in the mood.
Hay que reemplazar cada de estos pensamientos negativos uno por uno. Entonces tenemos que ya darnos cuenta en el instante que estamos pasando eso por la mente para poder ya empezar con algo diferente.
So goal from this class is every time you have a negative thought, catch yourself in the act and switch it for something positive.
Cada vez que ustedes se dan cuenta que están pensando algo negativo, para en este momento y ponga algo en su lugar, en su propio mente.
If you are surrounded by negative people,
Si te rodea a personas negativas,
talk to them about your goal from this day forward
hablo con ellos sobre sus metas de hoy para adelante
and ask them for their help.
y pregúntales solicítales su ayuda.
If they don't have anything good to say to you,
Si no tienen nada positivo que decirle,
please ask them not to say it.
entonces avísales que mejor no digan nada.
But you need their help to succeed.
Pero sí necesitamos su ayuda para poder tener éxito.
Okay, very good. Now let's talk about failure.
Ahora vamos a hablar sobre el fracaso.
Some of our biggest fears as human beings is failure.
Algunos de nuestros propios, o los miedos más grandes que tenemos como humanos
It's failure.
es de fracasar.
So let's look at some failures that you probably didn't know they were failures.
Ahora vamos a mirar algunos ejemplos de fracasos que quizás ustedes no sabían que eran fracasos.
Michael Jordan, famous player, basketball player. You probably know Michael Jordan. Raise your hand if you know Michael Jordan.
¿Sí han
Very
escuchado hablar de
powerful,
Michael
very famous American basketball player. Well, when he was in high school, he was playing, and his professor, his teacher, physical education teacher, comes up to him and tells him, "You know what, dude? I don't think you're good for this. I don't think you're cut out for this." He went home and cried all day long.
Cuando él estaba en la secundaria, Michael Jordan, él ni le aceptaron para ser miembro del equipo de básquet ahí en la época.
And when he went home, he said, "I'm going to be the best
Fue a la
basketball
casa,
player."
lloró mucho y después decidió que él iba a ser el mejor jugador de básquetbol.
And he became the best basketball player in America in the
Y lo logró
Nice.
en los 90s.
The Beatles. How many of you have heard the music from the Beatles? Okay, we all love the music from the Beatles. They were rejected by not just Decca Recordings. Decca Recording Studios was their biggest goal. But they had been rejected about 12 times before they got the opportunity to become, to present. And even after they presented to Decca, they got rejected.
Muchos rechazaron como docenas de veces antes de que sí por fin lograron conseguir un contrato para ya grabar música.
Steve Jobs starts the Apple company. You all have an Apple phone. He was the founder. He created the company. He grew the company to become a billionaire operation, and he gets fired from his own company.
Y él, Steve Jobs de la empresa de Apple, él le botaron de su propia compañía, Apple.
All right. And then he overcame that, came back, and he died being the Apple CEO with the most outstanding and extraordinary sales in the world, the most powerful company in the world.
Y después de superar su depresión, lo volvieron a agarrar y llegó a ser la mero ahí en Apple y murió siendo el CEO de la compañía.
After having started his business in his own garage.
Después de haber empezado su propia empresa en su casa, en su garaje.
Walt Disney. How many of you know Mickey Mouse? Okay, Walt Disney is a successful cartoonist. So he thinks when he is in his early 20s, he goes down to the Dallas Morning News and he says, "Look, I can make really cool cartoons." The president of the Dallas Morning News looks at the cartoons and he says, "You know what, dude? Kind of funny, but you are not a good cartoonist."
A Walt Disney le dijeron en un periódico de Dallas que él no tenía futuro en dibujar caricaturas ni nada.
So he picks up and drives all the way to his home. And in those days, they used to move in trains, so he sees a mouse in the train. And he paints the mouse.
Entonces iba por su casa triste y en el tren yendo para su casa vio un ratoncito y dibujó el ratoncito.
And that is who you know as Mickey Mouse today.
Y claro, ahora todos sabemos quién es Mickey
And
Mouse.
Walt Disney is the most powerful emporium in cartoons and obviously the most powerful entertainment company in the world. Albert Einstein, he's born and he couldn't even talk until he was 4. So this little, the little kindergarten teacher calls them out and says, your little Albert is very cute, but he cannot talk. He's kind of down. He's not going to amount to much. So why don't you take him home and teach him and do homeschooling for little Albert?
Albert Einstein no podía hablar hasta los 4 años de edad, entonces la maestra le decía a los papás, mira, es lindo y todo, pero no creemos que él tiene capacidad para vender. Quizás lo quieren ahí guardar en la casa porque en la escuela no va a poder.
Oprah Winfrey, you have heard about her and her many television shows. She got demoted for being the worst journalist in one television station she was working at.
Y todos conocemos a Oprah Winfrey y una vez le dijeron que ella era la peor periodista en la canal donde estaba trabajando antes.
Y la votaron.
Y la votaron.
Well, I used to work, about 20 years ago, I used to work for a company that was an international operation, and I was their international business developer.
Hace 20 años yo trabajaba con una compañía y yo estaba encargado de relaciones internacionales.
I asked for them to transfer me to America, so instead of traveling all over the world, I will be close to my children.
Yo pedí que me trasladaron a los Estados Unidos para que pudiera yo estar mejor, más cerca de mis hijos en lugar de viajar por todo el mundo.
And they told me that I will never sell anything in America.
Y me dijeron a mí que no podía yo poder vender nada en los Estados Unidos, no podía.
So I started my business, took all their customers, and they went bankrupt.
Entonces yo empecé mi propia compañía, les robé todos sus clientes y ellos se fracasaron.
So that's how you succeed. But you have to be very focused. And you cannot be afraid of failure.
Entonces así es como logran el éxito. Tienen que tener mucho enfoque y no tener miedo de fracasar.
In America, we all succeed by concept because we have all these very liberal ideas of no child left behind. So we don't learn how to fail in America.
En los Estados Unidos tenemos un concepto que nadie debe fracasar, entonces tenemos estas ideas y planes sociales como en las escuelas no dejar ningún niño atrás, que realmente no está funcionando en las escuelas porque el concepto tiene un error en nuestra forma de pensar.
God designed us to succeed and fail, and all that is part of the same road.
Dios hizo para que el hombre podría tener éxito y también fracasar. Y las dos cosas son parte del mismo camino.
Thomas Edison, the inventor of the light bulb and electricity, failed 6,000 times testing materials and 1,000 times making the light bulb.
Thomas Edison fracasó 6,000 veces en su intento de diseñar o inventar foco y fracasó 1,000 veces más. ¿Por qué?
And they intend to create the light bulb. So, let's talk about faith. So we talk about failure, we talk about determination. Let's talk about faith.
Ahora vamos a hablar sobre la fe.
What do you know about faith? Scripturally speaking, we should know a lot about faith.
Tomando en cuenta las escrituras debemos saber mucho sobre la fe.
But I like this particular chapter when the Lord is talking to the apostles and is telling them that, or is explaining to them how He heals people.
Me gusta mucho este versículo porque aquí el Señor está hablando a sus esposas sobre él se siente de la fe.
So notice that He begins Matthew 17:20 by saying, "You unbelievers."
Mira cómo empieza Mateo 17:20 diciendo, mira, ustedes de poca fe.
Gente de poca fe, unbelievers. So why is He addressing the apostles in this manner if they follow Him everywhere and they just suck up to Him all the time?
¿Por qué entonces el Señor les habla así? Si ellos son los apóstoles, le están con él todo el tiempo. ¿Por qué les dice que son gente de poca fe?
Because He knows us all. And He knows we are those people.
Porque Él nos conoce, Él sabe de verdad que sí somos estas personas de poca fe.
So He turns around and He thinks about a metaphor. And the metaphor that comes to mind is the mustard seed.
Entonces Él les quiere enseñar algo y agarra el ejemplo de la semilla de mostaza para hablarles sobre la fe.
And He tells these people, if you have this little tiny amount of faith, you'll be able to tell this mountain to move from here to there, and it will move.
Él dice a sus discípulos que ustedes tienen así fe, así del tamaño de una semilla de mostaza, pueden decirle, estas montañas que se quiten, se van a quitar.
Raise your hand if you believe that Jesus Christ spoke the truth.
Levanten sus manos si ustedes creen que Jesús habló de verdad en eso.
All right? So if you believe it, you can do it.
Si ustedes lo creen, entonces lo pueden hacer, ¿no?
He really knows our potential. It is sometimes us who don't realize our potential as children of Heavenly Father.
Absolutely, absolutely. We are His children. Did you know who you are? Remember the 3 arrows? Do you know who you are is the first question. Do you really know who you are? You are His seed. You are His creation. He made you in a spirit, and He blew up the spirit of creation in your nose, and here you are.
Nosotros
You are His child.
somos hijos de Dios. ¿Saben realmente quiénes son ustedes? Somos los hijos de Dios. Y tenemos que reconocer entonces el potencial que tenemos.
So, He knows our weaknesses, and He knew how weak these apostles were.
Él nos conoce y nuestras debilidades, y Él conocía también las debilidades de sus apóstoles.
If I was the human resources manager of Jesus Christ, I will go to Him in the early creation of His organization, and I will tell Him, excuse me, little Jesus, but I think you're failing in choosing these guys.
Si yo estuviera encargado de buscar a los seguidores de Cristo en tiempos de Cristo, ¿verdad? Como encargado de su empresa, de esta responsabilidad, yo quizás me acercaría al Señor diciendo, disculpe, Señor Jesús, yo creo que quizás te equivocaste en seleccionar a la persona que tú agarraste como tu esposo.
And let me tell you why. Andrew's a little timid. All he knows how to do is fish.
Andrés, él es tímido y solo sabe pescar.
Bartholomew, he's a little gossipy and he likes to complain.
Bartolomeo, él siempre queja y también
Not
chismoso.
very positive. James, the elder, he's too quiet.
Santiago, el mayor, está muy quieto.
John is very timid. He's always concerned about ladies. How he can help the old ladies.
Juan siempre está tímido también y siempre se preocupa por las viejitas, cómo puede ayudar a la viejita.
Judith, I think he's two-faced. And he could betray you.
Judas, él parece como que tiene doble cara, como quizás no puede, ¿cómo se dice? Traicionar.
And Matthew's a tax collector. Those guys are not very straight.
Y Mateo, él traicionaba los impuestos, y ellos son los más honestos que digamos.
They are funny with pennies. So I would not give him the tax job here. Peter, have you noticed how Peter is? Impulsive. He doesn't listen. And you want to make him your second in command?
Y Pedro, él como que es muy impulsivo y no hace caso y tú quieres ponerle como cabeza del grupo.
And sometimes he's bipolar. He's too excited in the Bible. Or he's too depressed.
Y a veces Pedro parece como ser bipolar, porque a veces está muy animado y a veces está como apagado.
You know, Simon. The Bible says that Simon was a zealot. Do you know what that translates out today? It's a guerrilla fighter. So I think Simon is your revolutionary guy. Watch out for that one.
Y Simón parece como ser más como revolucionario, pionero, no sé, tenemos que tener cuidado con él.
Now Thomas. Thomas is a cool guy, but Thomas is not a believer. If you don't prove it in the pudding, he's not a believer. And this is all ideas which you're selling. I don't think he's a good candidate for the job.
Y Tomás está más o menos, ¿verdad? Está buen hombre y todo, pero él como que siempre está dudando y no sé si él sirve para el trabajo que tengo que hacer.
They were humans, like you and I. He was surrounded by people like you and I. And he gave him the power to excel and go to heaven, to rule the world with him. Can he do that for you?
Y ellos eran humanos, ellos tienen defectos, ¿verdad? Pero el Señor tenía a su alrededor humanos. Y nosotros tenemos que darnos cuenta que nosotros tenemos defectos y somos humanos.
So this is what he said to them. Believe ye that I'm able to do this?
Él le dijo a Jesús le dijo, ¿crees que puedo hacer esto?
When he approached a healing moment, pay attention in the scriptures. There is one common denominator, and it's that he approaches the individual. Do you think that Jesus is asking that because he doubts himself that he can do this? No, he's asking the question because he knows that you are the one doubting.
En muchas ocasiones cuando Jesús iba a sanar de alguien, él hacía una pregunta semejante, casi la misma pregunta, ¿verdad? Si tú crees que puede ser esto, y no era porque él dudaba si él mismo podía sanar a la persona, sino porque él sabía que las personas, nosotros dudamos.
That's our number one fault.
Es nuestro defecto número uno.
And this is something that Satan plays on you over and over again. He knows that you are not a believer.
El adversario les conoce bien a ustedes, él sabe, él está convencido que ustedes dudan y no creen a veces.
So your goal today is, I am going to improve my education. What do you think Satan is going to come and say? Oh, you're too dumb.
Si su meta es que ustedes van a mejorar avanzar su educación, ¿qué creen que va a venir Satanás a decirnos? Nos va a decir que nosotros somos muy tontos o bobos para poder estudiar.
Or he's going to say, you're too old.
Yes.
O a veces nos van a decir, no, está muy grande para meterse en las clases con nosotros.
Or he's going to, if you are trying to lose weight, he's going to whisper in your ear and say, you're too fat.
O si quieren bajar de peso, le va a decir en sus oídos que están muy gordos, no pueden.
One way or another, he knows how to get the fear factor
Él
going.
sabe meter el miedo, la duda en nuestra mente.
I have a thought that I love, and it says everything you always wanted is beyond the fear factor.
Y me gusta mucho un dicho que dice que todo lo que nosotros hemos querido tener viene después del factor de miedo.
We have Bill Gates. Success is a lousy teacher. If you become successful, if you have achieved yourself to today, to who you are today, what is the biggest fear you have?
¿Qué es los miedos más grandes que tienen hoy ustedes?
Falling
Because
down.
you somehow are here today because you have been successful one way or another.
Ustedes están aquí hoy porque han logrado éxito en algún otro momento en sus vidas, por eso están aquí.
So, you are fearing to fail. You're fearing to not be successful anymore. So, Bill Gates says successful is a lousy teacher. So you've been success until now. But that is a lousy teacher because you're trying to succeed. And if there's a little bit of risk, you go, oh, I don't want to go that way. And you avoid that. That might have been your best path in life. But you just, because you're so afraid to not be successful, you choose not to go there. So every time you have that thought, think about the cases that we examined today. Walt Disney, Steve Jobs, the many cases we talked about. If worst comes to worst, think about Sister Clayton. Let's go next. The too late excuse. I'm too late to start, too late to begin this process. Well, let's look at some of the most successful enterprises. Yes, true, somebody started very young, like the creator of Pandora, who was 35 years old. I started my business at 39. Mark Pincus with Singa at 41. But let's look a little farther. In Craigslist, the owner started at 40. McDonald's restaurants, the owner started at 52. And how about Kentucky Fried Chicken? Started at 65. Did you know all this? Now you know. So, no age factor, no fear factor. All right? Next, we're going to talk about the language of success. I talked about what messages do you send to your brain. I grew up in a very negative home. I grew up with no father, and my father abandoned my home when I was 18 months old. And I have my mother, who by nature is very negative. And so she will always see me very hyper and very intrigued with people, who's fascinated with people. I had to look at people's faces and eyes, and I will position myself right square in front of people, and she will, in our culture, you don't do that. You're reserved and you're submissive, and you don't look at people's faces. But I had this impression that I had to do this all the time, and just to learn from people. And she will constantly tell me, don't do that, and she will always try to stop me. I got pinched several times for doing this, but I just had to do it. And I learned a lot from people just by being face to face
Yo
with them.
vengo de un lugar un poco negativo, mi papá nos abandonó cuando yo tenía 18 meses, mi mamá era un poco negativa también, y en nuestra cultura nos decía que cuando hablas con la gente quizás debe ser un poco tímido, sumiso, y en cambio yo sentía que cuando yo hablaba con una persona yo tenía que estar justo enfrente de ellos, mirarles en la cara, en los ojos, y así yo podía aprender más de ellos, y mi mamá me regañaba, me fiscaba, trataba de corregir eso, pero sin embargo algo me decía que yo tenía que ser así.
So, talk positively about everything you see. Remember the beginning of the conversation. If you don't have anything good to say about people, don't say it, shut your mouth. But if you, the same thing, if you don't have anything good to think, shut that negative process as well out of your mind. Okay?
Mejor no diga nada si no tiene nada bueno que decir, y también si le entra unos pensamientos negativos hay que reconocerlos inmediatamente y reemplazarlos con algo más positivo.
Your thoughts become emotions, and your emotions become actions, and your actions become results. So everything that you put in your mind eventually has an outcome.
Todo lo que meten en la cabeza eventualmente tiene un resultado.
I remember as a little child hearing several times that women were good for bed and the kitchen.
Me acuerdo mucho cuando era niña que muchas personas decían que las mujeres servían para la cama y para la cocina,
But nothing else.
para nada más.
But I knew deep inside of me that I was good for many other things.
Pero yo sabía dentro de mí que yo servía para muchas más cosas también.
The next slide talks about how do you get out of your own way. Sometimes we're our worst enemy because we're so negative, right? So if you had a bad childhood, if you had a bad moment in life or a bad patch or your life was rough as a child, I give you a lot of credit and you have a lot of medals in my book.
Si ustedes tenían una niñez muy difícil, un poco duro y pasaron muchas cosas, yo les doy mucho crédito y yo les quiero premiar con muchas medallas, según yo.
But do not get behind that excuse. It's an excuse.
Pero no ponen esto como pretextos, excusas para minimizar lo que ustedes pueden llegar a ser.
We have emotional crutches. We have developed emotional crutches.
A veces nosotros tenemos cositas,
Muletas.
Muletas.
emocionales, ¿verdad? Que nos pueden apoyar, pero realmente no nos ayudan.
Why do human beings try to justify things at times? So, is it so that they're at peace with the current state of affairs, or?
Because think about this. What is easier for you? To embrace the challenge or not do anything? What is easier?
To not do anything, to stay where you are.
That's human nature. So human nature tells you, why do you want to put yourself in that situation? Right? Why do you want to break the ice in that situation? Why do you want to put yourself through 20 hours of work to become an entrepreneur if you are just very easily living from welfare doing nothing? Right?
Someone who was abused as a child, I went through most of my life believing that I was a victim. And I had to learn very quickly that I'm a survivor. You know, I'm alive, I'm here. So, again, it's about what you want to be, what you want to become, how you want to see the world, what you want to give to everybody else. You're a ripple in this world.
I appreciate your comment, Sister Evans. A lot of you have truly spiritual, emotional scars.
Muchos de ustedes tienen cicatrices espirituales, emocionales.
But then again, it is up to your divine nature to overcome it, and you have the power to do so.
Pero depende, al final de cuentas depende de su naturaleza divina y del poder que tienen para poder vencerlo.
Jesus Christ took your pain in the cross. Leave it to Him and move on.
Jesucristo sufrió por sus dolores en la cruz. Deja esto a Él y continúa a seguir adelante ustedes.
Forgive and forget.
Hay que perdonar y dejar las cosas atrás.
We have all been done wrong in life at one point or another.
Siempre nos han hecho mal y siempre hemos sido víctimas de ciertas cosas en la vida, pero tenemos que dejar eso atrás.
Yes, sir?
¿Alguna vez se ha sentido así, impotente para hacer algo?
Absolutely.
¿Y qué ha hecho?
What I just showed you. Attack myself positive, no zero fear factor, move forward. I come from there. I come from there, sister. I have been there. A lot of fear. I remember being in a guerrilla town, being 8 years old, no food in any store, one can of tuna in my pantry, thinking and looking at my mother cry because there was no food. Somehow the miracle happened and the next day we have food.
Yo vengo de comienzos muy difíciles en un pueblo debilitado por los narcotráficos y me acuerdo ahí en la casa de mi mamá solo teníamos una lata de tuna y no había más comida, ella lloraba, pero yo decidí de seguir adelante, de no tener miedo y así yo pude sacar adelante.
And I come from nothing, I come from extreme poverty, but I came to America with $50 in my pocket and everything you see is profit.
Yo llegué aquí de un área muy pobre, llegué aquí con $50 en mi bolsillo y lo que tengo ahora todo salió como ingreso.
Todo lo que viene es ganancia. I couldn't speak English. I learned I had to re-educate myself when I came to America. That's one of the challenges for many of you.
How did you learn English?
In the street.
Did you go to school formally?
Street. No, I
Street
never went to
first.
school. Never went to school formally. I just learned by talking. I made myself the goal. And once I learned English, I thought this is really cool. I'm going to learn French, so I learned French.
Nothing like being in a place where you can practice the language you want to learn.
If I wasn't in the place, I would find myself a place. And so I wanted to learn French, and I ended up working for Air France. I was hired as the first French interpreter for Continental Airlines too. So I was exposed to French. But see how I got there. I found myself the possibility. The possibility didn't come and say, Selena Clayton, would you like to learn French? No. You gotta find the possibility. You gotta move yourself from the area of comfort. You gotta get to the area of discomfort. If you are comfortable in your life, you're not progressing. Did you know that? Get yourself out of the comfort zone.
Hay que salir y sacarse de las zonas de confort o de comodidad. Si ustedes están cómodos así como están, realmente hay que salir de donde están ahora para seguir adelante.
Okay, I'm gonna speed up through these slides because the bell is ringing. But pretty much think back of everything I told you. I'll send you the presentation so you can study it in detail.
Voy a pasar de esos siguientes slides rápido por el tiempo y les voy a mandar esto por email si quieren, pueden revisar y estudiarlo.
Okay, let's talk about visualization. This is one important topic that I want to use and I don't want to skip. And think about when the Lord comes to the father of all nations, Israel. And he tells him, do you know what? You're such a good dude. This is how I'm going to bless you. And he tells him that he is going to bless him in a certain form. Think about that for a moment. But let's talk about Michael Jordan. He had been told, you're not a very good player. From that moment on, he starts visualizing how he's going to be the best player in the world. And so he started visualizing himself. He wanted it to be the kind of player that was going to shock everybody. And he became that individual. And he says, I knew exactly where I wanted it to go. The problem with a lot of people is that they don't know exactly where they want to go. Or they have too many final destinations. You got to cut that off. Because if you got too many final destinations, you're not focusing. And that's very, very important. So if you're lost, your weight, your problem is your weight, and you want to lose weight today, then focus on that. Or if you are lacking education and you feel that that's what you need to do, focus on that. If you are not speaking English and you're living in America, cut out the baloney, don't find any more excuses, don't come to the Spanish branch, go to the English one where you sing and pray and listen to talks in English. That's simple. But what do? We come to America, oh, I gotta go to the Spanish branch because that's what I understand. You're hurting yourself if you're doing that. Get yourself out of the comfort zone, put some work on it, put some sweat on it, and I guarantee you, you will be fluent. The next slide. Oh, what's that one? Okay, outcome visualization is, keep on starting yourself in a visualized way. So, sisters, if you're not speaking English, I hope to see you all in an English word. If you're coming to the Spanish word, you're in trouble with me. And don't let me find you there, I'll tell you. Okay, process visualization. Remember when I told you that the Lord comes and talks to the Father of all nations and tells him, what does he tell him? He tells him, look, I'm going to give you the stars of heaven and the sands of the sea. What is he doing? What is God, the Father, doing when he sends this message through the Savior, Jesus Christ, to come and talk to this guy? What is he telling? What is he doing? Visualization is an old practice. He is coming and telling him, if you behave, if you do everything I say, I will give you infinite power. But he doesn't use the word infinite power. He's visualizing, he's presenting a picture of what's going to happen. There's a lot of power behind that. As a little girl, I used to work in my school. I am living in a destitute place. No water, dirt floors, tin roofs. And I walk around my school telling all my friends, I was 8 years old. I remember that. I would tell all my friends, I will go to America someday. And they crack up laughing. They all crack up laughing. You loser in America? Right? Oh, nobody goes to America. It's for rich people. Well, I got to America somehow, and here I am, 31 years later. So it happened because I visualized, that image was in my head the whole time. I was going to come here one way or another, I knew it. When I decided I was going to be a CEO, I pictured myself in a big chair. I was a CEO, and that image never moved. When I say I was going to learn to play the piano, I tried to learn to play the piano. I'm not the best piano player, but I get by. And I put a lot of work, and I became a primary pianist at one point because that was my goal at that time. So work very hard. If you're not putting sweat equity into your goals, you're not going anywhere. Visualize. What do you want to be? You want to be skinny? Picture yourself very skinny running through the park every day. Every time you're going to eat that big cookie, bring that picture out. Oh, it's me, skinny. Go to Zumba. Dance. Move. If you're sitting down, you got to get moving. But you know what you need as an individual. They say an apple a day takes the doctor away. So you got the apple in the kitchen. Why aren't you eating the apple? Because you don't want to. Right? That's simple.
I think I know the answer to this, but I'm going to ask a question so we can benefit. But as Latter-day Saints, we build the things that we should do and have as a priority in our lives. How did you find time to do both? To fulfill your Latter-day Saint responsibilities with the goals that you had for yourself?
That question is asked every single time I talk. Every single time, in different ways. My answer to this is there are seasons in your life. Think about your life as seasons. Are you single? What is the season of your life right now if you're single? Make myself better, I have the time, I don't have kids, blah, 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 right? But if you are a parent, what is the season of your life? To be parent. To be a parent, what is your priority? Kids. I have a dear friend here, Mark. I saw this woman struggle alone raising 3 kids alone. 3 kids. 2 missionaries run out in the mission field. Martha is the most incredible woman. She worked 20 hours days. Sometimes I live across the street and I will take her kids from school. But Martha was concentrating in the season of her life. And her season of her life was to be a mother. And she was going to get through, I don't know how. But she did it.
And that's within the gospel, so that's great.
Absolutely. And that includes, you use all the tools that the Lord gives you. What is my season of my life? Think about right now. Am I a student? Am I a mother? Am I a grandmother? I am looking for a spouse and a mate. What is the season of your life? Don't be unrealistic. That's when I talk about realistic expectations and realistic goals. You know, I was telling my husband, I said, I missed something in life that I never accomplished. And I always wanted to have a nice Corvette. And I told him, you know what, it's not the season of my life. I have the money to buy the Corvette. But is it the season of my life for me to be running around in a Corvette at 53 years of age? I think I look pretty stupid. So be realistic about what is the season of your life and put yourself right square in the middle of it. No daydreaming, no mumbo jumbo. This is who you are and this is the season of your life. Take your priorities, put them in order, and move forward. And that's how I did it. I always wanted to go to school, have a nice American degree and all that stuff. But that wasn't the season of my life. I was raising kids. I had to put that kid back there, the nice good-looking bald guy right there, that's my husband. I had to put that one through school first, then raise the kids, then bring the family from Latin America and finding and making successful, then come to Houston, then work because you have to eat. That was a priority of my life at that moment, right? And so I'm 53 years old, But I got into Harvard Business School. I am the oldest student in Harvard, I swear, but I am in Harvard.
Good. You know, and I'm sure you found, correct me if I'm wrong, but I get the feeling that you had enough time to read the scriptures every
Absolutely.
day, have
With the
holidays of
scripture,
evening.
because you
and do
prioritize
Right.
according to the season of your life. Okay?
Right.
So keep in mind what's the season of your life. Prioritize. You know, I have Alma back there. Alma, another woman I admire incredibly. This woman got her master's degree, went to school and being a mother. She made that her priority, and she sacrificed a lot, but she got through her process. She didn't relinquish being a mother, and she got her degree. But those are the kind of tough decisions that you have to make. And you gotta say, I'm gonna get myself out of this comfort zone, and I'm gonna do it because it's the season of my life to do this. All right? Next, sorry, I am over the time. I got a cut
Thank
here.
you.
Let's keep on going, keep on going. I'm gonna skip over a few slides here, keep on going to that one. Okay, this guy, attitude is very important. This guy, how many of you have read this guy, Viktor Frankl? Have you heard or read this guy? No. This guy is a survivor of the Holocaust. During the Jewish times, they took during the persecution of Jewish times by the Germans, they took his family and killed his wife in front of him to break him. And kill every child in front of him. They deprived him from every item of clothing he had on him. And lastly, they took his wedding ring and crushed it in front of him. What were they trying to do? The Germans were trying to break him. This man survived that whole tragedy, left camp weighing 78 pounds, and came to America after he survived this horrible thing, became a psychologist for people in very stressful situations, a special kind of psychology he practices. But this man wrote in his book something that is profound. And he said this. He said, I could not control what they were doing to me. But it was only one thing that I could control. And it was my own attitude. And my attitude was to survive. That's the kind of attitude you guys need in life. Because life is, we are all in survival mode. Okay? And read this book if you can. So, next slide, let's go quickly. This is a nice thing. Be willing to suffer. It's going to take pain. It's not going to be easy. You either suffer the pain of failure or the pain of success, but it has a price. Choices, changes, and chances and changes. Make sure that you make your choice, that you give it a chance, and that you make change. The next one is, we're almost there. I never lose. I enter to win or I learn. Talk about attitude. This should be your attitude. Think about, tell it to yourself every day. Make that your credo. I never lose. I can make this happen. I either enter to win or I learn. But nothing is lost. Next. 3 things. Think about these 3 things. This is probably the most important slide of this presentation. Commit to the Lord in whatever you do. And this is a scripture about faith. Commit to the Lord. It is actually in Proverbs 6:3. Commitment. The Lord is asking commitment. He's not asking, think about it. Sometimes I challenge my employees and they tell me, oh, think about it. No, that's not what I want as a boss. I want your commitment. That's what God is telling you right now. I want your commitment. That you are going to change. That you're going to do something with your life. That you're going to come out of that attitude thinking that, hey, I'm a loser, I'm too fat, I'm a foreigner. No. You got to get out of that negative thought process. Commit yourself, everything that you're doing to the Lord, and move forward. Doctrine and Covenants says the glory of God is intelligence. There is something very important in success, and it's called the philosophical success of the individual. How do you, philosophically speaking, become a better person? How did you educate yourself as an individual? You're going to have to find ways. Stephen Covey, one of the most impressive teachers of Brigham Young University, said that if you are not sharpening your saw, you're not moving forward. You know what that means? Get the saw picture in your mind. Your saw is your knowledge. And if you are not constantly learning something new, you are going stale. And you're going to go back in the other direction. So your philosophical power comes from knowledge. That's why the church, Doctrine and Covenants, Prophet Joseph Smith, Doctrine and Covenants 93-36 says, the glory of God is intelligence. Not only is the intelligence, but it is light and truth. poke your eye because you're ignorant. Because you're going to know about everything. You're going to know about politics, who's the best candidate to vote for, who is the most impressive individual out there, what do they stand for. How many people know that in America today? Nobody knows it. I look at people and they act like zombies. Because they are not sharpening their saw. They are not learning, they are not looking at the nice. They're watching soap operas instead of learning about what's the state of government, what's happening with oil, why oil crashed. Do you know all these things? I go to universities and teach and stand in front of people in Harvard and Stanford and Brigham Young and they go, I don't know. Do you have an idea how I feel? If this is America, this is sad. But the Lord wants you to have knowledge. Faith and works. I just love when I used to be a Relief Society president, and I would visit all these people that didn't want to work. And I would tell them, well, sister so-and-so, do you realize that your health is strong and you could be working? I worked 3 jobs when I came to America because I loved it. I was so shocked to find so much work in America. I took 3 jobs. Yeah, they were not the finest jobs. I was a maid. I was cleaning homes. Fine. But I worked 3 jobs and I loved it because I had money in my pocket. I was meeting my own needs and I was building my own pride as an individual, successful who I was in my own way. If you are cleaning 3 homes a day, you are successful. It may not be the first lady in the White House, but you are successful in your own way. Be proud of what you're doing. Never consider that work is below you. If it's work, it's always above you and it's going to make you better. So sisters would tell me, oh, it's because in Guatemala I was the secretary of the first minister of agriculture. Well, too bad. You can't be a maid in America and be proud. I guarantee you, you were making less money as the secretary in Guatemala than the kind of money you were making here cleaning 3 houses. I guarantee you that. So don't let any job be above you, below you. If it's work, it's worthy, and God is happy with you, and He's going to give you help. Now, He says faith and works. Don't tell me the story, oh, well, I'm going to sit here because the Lord is going to provide. Guess what? I have news for you. The Lord doesn't provide if you don't move your butt. It's not automatic, okay? There are 2 separate laws. And one is effort, motion, and disposition to do the work. And the other one is faith. But look what we learn in the scriptures. In the scriptures, faith without works is dead. So don't go to the bishop and tell him that the Lord will provide. Because this is exactly what he's going to think. This loser is going to go down the drain very fast because the Lord is not going to provide if he is not working. If you don't have a job, get out there. Your full-time job is to get yourself a job. If you are unemployed, spend 40 hours a week in networking operations, finding your job. If you want to be an entrepreneur, you want to be successful, you work 60 hours a week. That's what I work, 60 hours a week. Finding my clients, because I have a consulting firm and I have a number of employees that I have to maintain busy. So work, we Latinos, and I'm speaking to the Latino, I'm very proud of being a Latino because we work very, very hard. We have work ethic. Pay attention to this. You will never see a Latino beggar. Have you ever seen one? We rather steal than beg because stealing takes effort. It's been very nice to meet you all. The ones that I know, it's my honor, and I appreciate everything you're doing to better yourself now. Thank you so much.